7:02.
The Political Desk.
10 minutes before 7 o'clock, of course, every Friday we bring you the Political Desk, looking back on the week that was in our politics, in our current affairs. And who better to do it with us today than our ace EWN reporter, Kgomotso Modise, who gives regular updates on news and current affairs and matters in the courts. You've launched this fantastic digital career where you are on various social media platforms and giving these updates. And what a week it has been. Let's start with the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry.
Yep.
I mean, we've seen some explosive moments to be true, but I can't remember a week that was as engaging and as invigorating. Not that they will ever think of it in this way, but this was their best week yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all eyes were on the Madlanga Commission. In fact, on one of my videos, Bongani, I said that this is the week or the day, particularly when we were expecting Madlanga, where people take leave to listen to the commission.
Jonga?
Yeah. So this is where we are currently with the Madlanga Commission, and it's because of the figures that we were expecting to hear from this week. I mean, from Andrea Johnson, who's the head of IDAC, we were expecting her to testify. We were also expecting Madlanga to testify, and we were scheduled to hear testimony from Suliman Carrim as well, the Northwest businessman. So there's quite a bit that we're expecting this week, and as a result, that's why
It was so riveting.
Yes.
Let's start with Kat Madlanga. Now, of course, he abandoned his plea agreement with the state.
Yep.
He'd been promised 8 years, and a judge looked at that matter and said, hang on, there's not enough to go on here. I mean, the
Yes.
NPA actually does have a duty to investigate rather than just to rely on informants. He said, well, 12, no thank you. So how did that complicate his appearance at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry?
So, we were expecting him to go through with that deal because it seemed he and the NPA had really reached some sort of an agreement. And when the magistrate said 12 years, he roped in his lawyer, Annelien van der Heever, to help in these negotiations, which said to me that there may have been still a chance for them to find common ground somehow. But that fell through. And then he had to appear at the Madlanga Commission, and Annelien van der Heever, his lawyer, was there arguing quite a bit. And she argued for quite a long time, making the argument that she needs to go through the plea agreement that he had signed or that he partially entered into with the state. And I was listening to her argument, and she's basically saying because there's some concessions or admissions that have been made in that plea agreement, they have to go through that first so that he doesn't perjure himself before the Madlanga Commission. Now, I find that to be quite outrageous. I mean, the truth is the truth, right? And if there's truth in the plea agreement, then it shouldn't be a problem for him to express the same truth in the witness stand.
But in fairness, is there any room to suggest, as you've now just outlined, that he may have negotiated some of this without her legal advice? And if this is the case, she is to defend. She needs to know exactly what he has said with now her advice.
That's exactly what they're saying. So he started these negotiations without Annelien van der Heever, something that I found to be interesting because she's representing him in his other case as well, the attempted murder case. So he roped her in quite late in the proceedings, and she kept on saying that she's not comfortable with putting her client in that position now that she's part of this. So we then saw that postponement. But something else that was interesting for me is that he hadn't filed an affidavit at all. So when witnesses testify before the commission, they file the affidavits, and that is what they are questioned on. And of course, other pieces of evidence like WhatsApp messages. But he hadn't filed an affidavit at all, which said to me he wasn't prepared to testify at all. And I think that put the commission in a very difficult position because even if they did say, let's continue, you are testifying today, I'm finding it difficult to see what they would have gone off on because they didn't
there was
have
no statement that he could then use or that could be used to explain his version of events. So is that because there was some tense and terse exchanges
Yes.
between the commissioners
Yes.
and his legal representative? Do you think that the decision then to allow him to file a statement and for his appearance to be postponed hinged more on that, the fact that there was no affidavit to begin with, rather than necessarily the arguments his lawyer made.
Yeah, I mean, it was very clear that the commissioners were not buying the arguments that were made. At some point, the lawyer was making a reference to a trial on Monday. Now, the trial that she's referring to has got nothing to do with what's going to be asked about at the Madlanga Commission. That's the attempted murder case that he's accused in with his wife, Tsakane. So she kept on conflating these cases, and the commission was not buying it. The commission was also not buying the fact that she kept on making reference to this plea agreement, which has now fallen through. I mean, it's clear that it's not going forward. It's null and void. So it wasn't her arguments. It was the fact that the commission doesn't have a statement, affidavit before it, and they need that to question him on his version of events.
As you said, the truth is the truth. It doesn't change depending on who's asking. Now, the other interesting witness that we didn't quite hear from was, as you say, the Northwest businessman Suliman Carrim. But not only did we not hear from him, he was seen and heard, supposedly, around town.
Yeah, that's what's been alleged and claimed by the commission. The commission claims to have received 2 whistleblower reports from people that saw him at a shopping center in Cape Town. We also heard the lead evidence leader, Matthew Chaskelson, speaking about how he's also been seen in the Northwest at some sort of a function, So he seems to be living his life. He seems to
He's
be
up
doing
and
all
about.
right. Yes, that's what's being claimed. But his lawyer that we heard yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Pramid Camille, who said, he is actually still in hospital. And I found that to be interesting. I mean, is he in hospital still receiving medical attention?
Or does it happen to pop in every now and again?
Yes, and that's what the commission will now learn today. So we're expecting submissions to be made both by the lawyers for Carrim as well as the commission. And we know that the commission is promising to bring explosive evidence, Bongani. They're saying they're going to be bringing CCTV footage. They're going to be, they've subpoenaed the doctors to give details about whether this person is admitted, is he receiving medical attention, when was he released. And I think that speaks to the extent and the lengths that the commission is willing to go to find out the truth.
There's
and
no
also,
wiggle room.
And also to maintain the integrity of the commission's work, because it does seem at this stage that they're not being taken seriously.
One of the things, of course, that I think has perhaps not been a huge focus of a lot of discussions is IDAC itself. I mean, a lot of the focus has been around IDAC head Andrea Johnson and her non-appearance due to, again, medical reasons. I don't know if there's been an update since she was rushed off to hospital in a hurry. Was it Monday? And here we are on a Friday. I don't know if there's been an update, at least to the commission. But much of what we've heard around how IDAC works and the cases that they've tried to pursue and the people against whom they've pursued those cases leaves a really, really sour taste.
Yep. Listen, I mean, the affairs of IDAC are being laid bare at the Madlanga Commission, and I can tell you that there's a lot that Andrea Johnson has to answer to. And if, she's avoiding the commission, which I'd like to believe she isn't, but if she's avoiding it at the commission, I can see why. I mean, firstly, she needs to answer about her alleged interference in the charges against Feroz Khan. This was when she was a senior prosecutor, just before she was admitted or appointed to IDAC. She's got to answer to that because she's accused of interfering in that assault case and basically, ensuring that Khan does not stand trial, does not stand as an accused. But then when it comes to IDAC itself, there are many questionable decisions, prosecutorial decisions that prosecutors and investigators at IDAC have made.
People arrested on hearsay.
Absolutely. People arrested on hearsay. I mean, dodgy looking affidavits that are made, questionable decisions, and opinions that are given about who should be appointed to what position, on what basis. And the commission has not held back. I mean, last night they ran until really late in the evening, just before 9 p.m., questioning Brian Padiachi, one of the senior investigators who was leading the case against crime intelligence head Dumsani Khumalo. And that exchange for me said a lot about what happens at IDAC and how decisions are made to prosecute. But also, there's been a lot also that's been brought into the spotlight about the relations that IDAC has with a controversial figure like Feroz Khan. The fact that he is regularly mentioned when it comes to IDAC. I mean, we heard yesterday a mention of his name when the decisions around this position that Dineo Mokwele was appointed to were made. Feroz Khan's name comes again. And there's an affidavit penned by him as well, where he's got nothing to do with this investigation. It says to me, really, that there's something dodgy going on here when it comes to Khan and IDAC. And Andrea Johnson, who was at his birthday party, apparently, needs to answer.
And of course, Feroz Khan himself hasn't appeared before the commission because he remains in hospital too, we understand. Kgomotso Modise, I mean, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. Thank you so much for this week's Political Desk, looking back at the week that was.